let's start with England.
Yeah.
They beat Finland 3-1. What I'm finding interesting here is kind of the situation they're in. And then we're going to try to be helpful today, Jules.
Yes.
We're going to try to be helpful and offer our combined, 40 years experience
Yeah.
covering this game. 60, 70, I don't even know. 80 years experience as fans
Yeah.
combined, something like that. To try to sort this out, because they're in a situation where they have arguably the most talented group of players in the world, other than perhaps France. I'd say probably other than France. I mean, we can debate it, right? But they're right up there. And yet, for whatever reason, things always seem to go wrong one way or the other when they get close. They're in a situation now where Gareth Southgate has left. They haven't appointed a new manager. You've got this manager, Lee Carsley, who seems to say one thing one day. So on Thursday, when they lost to Greece, and you can tell me all about that, I was happily didn't have to witness that. He said, well, it wasn't an experiment when he played the weird lineup.
Very weird.
When it clearly was an experiment when you play that lineup. And then he says he hasn't applied for the England job, but then he says he's open to the England job.
Yeah.
But then he says that England need a world-class coach.
Which he isn't.
Whoever's won lots of trophies, which I can't work it through it. So help me.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute circus to start with, which is never too far from England in general. I know Gareth Southgate brought a bit of peace to it, but it's very often like that. I think the FA has created a mess in a way, the England Federation, because they know it was quite likely that Southgate would go after the Euros, so they could have prepared for it. Could have had a plan A, Southgate stays, and a plan B, Southgate leaves. And instead, if you read the newspaper here in England, they said they still haven't interviewed anybody for that job. So they gave it to Lee Carsley for 3 international breaks, September, October, November. And in the meantime, they do nothing. So I'm not really sure where they're going. But it was fun to see them being ridiculous against Greece because of the lineup that he chose, which made no sense whatsoever.
Remind people who might not have watched this what sort of lineup we're talking about.
Yeah, because we discussed it with Nathan on Thursday morning, so the morning of the game, and we did say, like, you know what, sometimes a false nine could be a good idea for this team because of all the talent they have. Little we knew that Lee Carsley will take this literally to the letter, even beyond the alphabet, by going with a lineup of Gordon, Saka, Palmer, Foden, Bellingham, all together somehow with no structure.
He's an attacking coach. Those are attacking players.
Yeah, that was quite a stupid
So basically
lineup.
it was Declan Rice with a back four.
Exactly. A back four that includes Rico Lewis, who played as a midfielder, and Trent Alexander, who played as a midfielder as well. So there was just no balance, no shape, no structure, and they got really destroyed by Greece, who should have won easily 4-1 or even maybe 5-1. After that, it was a little bit better against Finland in a more traditional 4-2-3-1 formation. Still not great, not very convincing, but at least they got a win.
Yeah, and even the Finland game last night, you know, we're talking about Finland missed an obvious sitter.
1-1, yeah.
And then the goal that made it 2-1 was a Trent set piece, which is nice, but that's not coaching, Trent set pieces. I disagree with you a little bit, and I'm not just being contrarian. The World Cup is in 2026. That is some time away. Lee Carsley obviously has if you compare him as a communicator to Gareth Southgate, he will lose. Almost everybody will lose to Gareth Southgate. Probably not Jurgen Klopp. But, and we can't judge him by that. He's a football guy. He's obviously did well with the under-21s. Before that, we all know people at Brentford who employed him where he worked and he's very serious and whatnot.
Yeah.
He doesn't, I don't want to say he lacks Southgate's charisma, because Southgate doesn't have certainly traditional alpha male charisma. Is a different one. But he's a guy who has ideas. I don't have a problem with him trying something different, right? They're trying to say,
but
like,
not that, Gab. That was too extreme. That was too silly.
But if he doesn't try it then, when is he supposed to try it?
Try it, but not to that extreme of playing those 5 attacking players in that way. There was no, it looked ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
All right, Jules, we'll get to the manager search, the Southgate succession thing in a minute, but I want to take us back to the Greece game.
Yeah.
And again, if nobody ever experimented, everybody did things the same way, then there would be no innovation, right?
Yeah.
I'll go all Zuckerberg on you. You know, move fast and break things.
Yeah.
He tried something different, and he tried something different without the time to really practice it, because I think England
20
would have
minutes, he said. They worked on it for 20 minutes. Come on, please. This is an international game. It's not even in friendly. I just don't think this was the right. He could have gone for, if he wanted, for Foden as a false nine or Bellingham as a false nine, and put someone with Rice in midfield and have something more balanced that made more sense, and he would have learned much more from it than this just mashup that he did on that. I just don't understand.
If you just listen to us on the podcast and not, it's worth going on YouTube just to see
No,
how
it's true,
disgusted Jules looks like now. Jules' face is a picture.
But then for him then to come out after the game and said, yeah, we worked it for 20 minutes at training. Well, come on, why?
It's weird, and it also feeds into this narrative about the Nations League. Like, okay, as you know, I am a fan of the Nations League.
Me
I
too.
get annoyed when people say, like, oh, what is it even supposed to be? I'm like, dude, it's like the 4th edition. If you haven't worked out what it is. And I remind people what the landscape was like before, when you would play a bunch of completely meaningless friendlies. This actually, I think, actually means something, because you're playing teams of equal prestige. If you're a top side, and of course a top side that does not get relegated, i.e. not England, because they are relegated.
Yeah.
And you know, had they screwed up the Finland game, they could be on their way to playing Moldova, by the way. Who I believe are hot favorites from
to come up
promotion
from
to come up. Can you imagine? Like, I mean, so it is a competition, and those people who say, "Oh, but it's the quality," so, you know, this is like the World Cup and the Euros during the year.
Yeah.
And we can either say we don't like international football, we want to get rid of international football altogether, and only have it for the World Cup and the Euros. And by the way, if you do that, then you don't have any continuity, and then that'll be really crappy quality too. Just hand everything over to the clubs. Or otherwise, this is a much better solution, what we had before. I agree with you. Reaching that level of experimentation without preparation, you're doing one of two things. One is you're saying, oh, Greece are so terrible. It's like Greece are like the Muppet Show, which they're not.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter who I send out there.
Yeah.
So I think that was a bad call. The idea to try something like this for a future when, you know, Harry Kane is older. Harry Kane drops off anyway, much more. And then you really only have Watkins because, you know, you don't like Tammy and whatever else. Like, I don't think is a bad idea. Like the fundamental concept of how do I get my three of my very best players on the pitch at the same time is not a bad context. So I don't fault them for that. Doing it in that context with 20 minutes and then coming out and saying, oh, we only practiced it for 20 minutes. Again, I take it back to communications. Yeah. I think he also has another issue too, because he's very low profile. Inevitably, national team managers who don't have club careers, they come into it with their legacy as players, right? Yeah. So with this guy, those of us old enough to remember him, we remember you as kind of like, you know, the off-brand low-rent Thomas Grafson, who, you know, the shaven-headed guy who runs around and runs into people and can't play, right? So you think he's going to be like this as a national team coach. Right. On top of that, he's shaven-headed. He's not handsome like Gareth Southgate. I'm just kidding. But he gives off a certain look. And he's not like that at all. Those who've worked with him say he's studious, he's attacking-minded, he's very reflective. He is not what he was as a player. But this is what you have to go on. Between that and the things that he says and his communications issues, which again are exacerbated by the fact that he's following on from Southgate, who had the media, you know, eating out of his hands, at least as a person. Football's another thing. It makes everything so much more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought his September international break, the first half against Ireland was good. The game against Finland, Wembley, not maybe so much overall, but there were positives in there. The role for Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example, was very interesting, something that Southgate never really went into until he played him as a proper midfielder, which, again, made no sense at all at the World Cup, at the Euro, sorry. So there's things that are interesting. But he seems conflicted himself, Carsley, like you said. Sometimes one day he wants the job, one day he doesn't want the job. Another day he wants the job.
Okay, can we knock this on the head? He wants the job.
Well, yeah, surely. He said it after September. But now that things haven't gone well.
Whatever nonsense he says, I haven't applied for the job. Maybe they haven't opened applications or whatever. Like, surely he wants the job.
Of course he
Surely
does.
right?
Of course he
Okay.
does. But then when things don't go well, he starts saying like, well, actually, I never really said. Hopefully, I'll be back with the under 21.
Yeah, so don't be a tool. Just say, I want the job. I want to show you. Hopefully you evaluate the whole Lee Carsley, what I can bring, and judge me based on that.
But where I was
That's all
very
you have to say.
disappointed is I think he wanted the job, especially after September when things went well and people were praising him, and he got massively carried away with that Greece game and the lineup. And I think that was suicidal from him in the sense for his own England career. I mean, because I think it's very unlikely now that they give him the job, regardless of what happens in November. And there's obviously a massive game away in Greece, because if they don't top this group, they're staying in League B next season again, which is embarrassing in itself.
It is really embarrassing.
So bad.
Can you imagine if most of like the ex-pros and pundit talkers in the country kind of started really caring about the Nations League?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on to the FA, right? So you came out and you said just now that, he hasn't helped himself with the job. What should the Football Association be looking at? Because as I see it, there may be other candidates. Personally, my kind of baseline position is that if you are a big nation, you need to have a player from that nation, or you need to have a coach from that nation. Before people point out that Lee Carsley played for the Republic of Ireland, sure, whatever, same difference, right? In the sense that the man.
So you're not for a foreigner for this job. You want a British guy
I think
or an Irish guy.
unless you're in a crisis situation, where arguably they were when they appointed Sven-Göran Eriksson,
Yeah.
where really you look around and it's just a pure Muppet show of freaks
Yeah.
and weirdos and crooks, which I think is part of the reason why they went with Sven back in the day. Capello, I think, was a big difference. I think Capello said, like, oh, yeah, we get him. He's a winner. We automatically win, right?
Yeah.
Didn't work out either. I think you should go with somebody who represents, if you are a big nation. If you're a smaller nation, I don't fault you, right? But there are alternatives out there who are English. I just look at them and I'm not sure any of them excite me right now, or I feel would be ready to leave club management. I mean, I don't see any basis why, if you were Eddie Howe, right?
Yeah.
Unless you get sacked by Newcastle, why would you leave Newcastle for England? You wouldn't.
But unless England is your absolute best, is one of your dreams to go to a World Cup with England, your country. Maybe that's a dream that he's had, him or somebody else.
Unless you make a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Right?
And also, like some people see it as the pinnacle of your career to coach your national team, your country.
And it can be. The problem is, after you go to England and you go away, it's not easy to get back into club management at a high level. And I think Eddie Howe, especially at his age, Eddie Howe's not 60, right? He's younger than that. I think he's mindful of this situation.
Yeah.
There are other decent England managers, but nobody who I look at and say, oh, look, you're far ahead of Lee Carsley. So the idea of having an FA man, somebody who's been there, somebody who knows all the guys who've been through the under-21s really well, somebody who's not going to embarrass you in public, say stupid things, drink the pint of wine like a former England manager once did.
Yeah.
Who plays attacking football, or says he does, who I think in some ways, all the things that we criticize Gareth Southgate for, I think Lee Carsley is capable of moving beyond that. I think he's shown that. I guess what I'm driving at, Jules, is while I love as much as anybody to make fun of the Football Association, I kind of think they're doing things in the right way. And what I mean by this is, you said they should have prepared before for Southgate, whatnot. I think if they have somebody who they see as a potential in-house solution in Lee Carsley, and also having a situation where and they should give them a shot, and thereby also avoiding a situation where Southgate leaves and then who are we gonna hire, and you're kind of forced to go and beg Graham Potter or Tuchel or whoever else to take your job right then and there, right? So giving yourself that little bit of time, maybe quietly poking around, seeing what's out there, seeing who's available. Maybe there's a top manager who gets sacked and who becomes available between now and January. And then you make a decision in January. You've got 6 games as England manager, and more importantly, I think 3 long England camps on which to judge Carsley, and then you make a decision.
I don't know. I think we mid-October. It's 3 months now since Southgate announced he was leaving. In 3 months, I don't think you should be in this position. And by the way, I mean, we're not even sure if Carsley wanted. Well, we think he wanted the job. He wants the job, but he says himself that it's a job for a world-class manager that he isn't.
So it's not helping himself.
Yeah,
he said the England manager should be a world-class coach
who's won titles.
Well, he's won a title with the under-21s.
Yeah, but that's it. So I'm not sure if you put him there, if you really believed in him or not. I don't think he's the answer now anyway. Also because of his own communication, but also by what we've seen so far in what he's done. Yes, there's different ideas, new ideas, which is all good. A bit more attacking, that's great. I'm just not sure I really don't think he's the answer right now.
Thomas Tuchel has been linked with the job.
Yeah.
Cynics suggest that it is a way to perhaps move Manchester United into hurrying it along with Erik ten Hag.
Maybe.
I think Thomas Tuchel would be a bad option for England, not because he's a bad coach. I would actually bring Thomas Tuchel in like a month before the World Cup if I were desperate and he wanted the job, more so than having him be England manager day in, day out. Because the way the man's personality is, the guy needs to be working every day. Otherwise his head explodes.
That's what we think, but he might, if he wants that job and he's agreeing on taking on England, his feelings might be different towards. That's what.
Let me ask you this: if I were Thomas Tuchel and I ring you up and it's like, yeah, Julian, Thomas here, like, should I wait for the United job or should I take the England job?
Yeah,
what would you tell him?
But I understand. But the United job might never come, so we don't know.
Well, because Ten Hag's going to be there for eternity.
It doesn't matter. They might go for somebody else than Tuchel if Ten Hag is sacked. Whereas if he gets offered the England job, that's because he's keen on it. Otherwise, they wouldn't offer him the job. I think he should. What's interesting about England is usually when you come over and take over a big country like that, it's either things have gone really, really bad, or somebody has left very quickly, like a Mancini for Italy. Deschamps had to do a massive rebuilding job. De La Fuente for Spain, Luis Enrique left, and clearly they wanted a different philosophy and style to what Luis Enrique had done. In this case, it's just that momentum and what you already have great, which is a Euros finalist in the last 2 Euros, actually. One of the best squads, as you said, in world football, young, with players who play in top clubs, for top managers. You would think, good mentality, a big footballing country, all of that. And you just need a winner now. You just need somebody who would finally going to take you over the line, which Southgate couldn't do, which I don't think Carsley can do. I really hope if he gets the job that he can do it. I'm a bit skeptical after what we've seen in the last 4 games now. But maybe Tuchel is the guy they think, okay, he's a winner. And by the way, Tuchel's shelf life is like 18 months usually. After that, things go crazy and bonkers and mad. But if you appoint him in January, let's say, January to the World Cup, that's 18 months. For that, he can probably do a really good job.
I'll just leave you this thought since you did mention him. I wasn't going to go there. When Luis Enrique left Spain, they turned to their under-21 coach, who had also worked for the FA in different roles for many years.
Yeah.
He is not a charismatic guy. In fact, let's face it, he still looks like a bit like a weirdo. In fact, possibly even weirder than Lee Carsley. And he had only won at youth level, right? And what does he do?
Okay, it's not because De La Fuente works that it's going to work for every under-21 managers in the world.
No,
right?
but you know how people in football think.
Please,
you know how people in football think.
Yeah, but still.
All right, enough England. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
France rolled to a 4-1 win over Israel on Friday. They take on Belgium in a few hours as we record this on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Jules, Kylian Mbappe wasn't there because he's recovering from injury, but he's making headlines. First, he goes to Sweden, to a nightclub, supposedly. And now some are reporting, and I will just come right out, I do not believe a word of this.
No, it's not.
That he has asked only to play important games so he can focus on winning the Ballon d'Or. Do you believe this?
Which Ballon d'Or? The 2025 one? For 2024 is...
The 2025 Ballon d'Or.
Right, yes. Okay.
Because the votes are already in and being counted.
So there's not that many games actually for country coming up. There will be 2 in November. And then after that, there's a long break, obviously, until March, and then even longer after that until June. So
he doesn't want to play those games because he's focusing.
That's not true. He's the country's captain. Obviously, enough was said and made about the fact that Deschamps didn't call him up because he was not fully fit, and then 2 days later he plays for Real Madrid, obviously against Villarreal, which was the big issue that fans didn't like, that people in France, ex-players, pundit didn't like either. How can you be injured and still then play 70 minutes for your club? Which is, I think, a fair criticism. I think there was a big issue in communication overall. And then for him to be spotted in Stockholm on the night of that game on Thursday, he had days off. He could have gone anywhere. He decided to go to Stockholm with his friends, Nordi Mukiele included. They went for nice food, a nightclub.
In Stockholm?
He can do whatever he wants. Yeah, it's a lovely part. Have you been to Stockholm?
I have been to Stockholm.
Clubs are great in Stockholm.
Yeah, I would imagine the food and the clubs are better in Paris. But hey, whatever.
Yeah, but maybe he just wanted to be a bit more incognito. I don't know. But he can do whatever he wants. He's off. It's his private life.
Okay,
What's
but
the problem?
this thing, this Ballon d'Or thing.
No, that's BS.
But who would make up who's...
I don't know. The guy who reported it is quite a well-informed guy, but I don't know. But this is not... We didn't even ask the question.
Even if you believe this, even if this were... And I don't for a second believe that Kylian Mbappe would be so shallow as to believe this.
Yeah,
even if you believe this, and then simply because Kylian Mbappe knows his history, right? Cristiano Ronaldo always wants to play, especially when he was at that age.
Yeah.
Lionel Messi always played at that age, right?
Yes.
There's no way he would think something like this. And even if he believed it, he would never go and tell Deschamps.
No, definitely. It's Italy's turn to face Israel in a few hours, Gav, as well. But I want to ask you about the performance in the 2-2 draw against Belgium, which was on Thursday last week, and especially about our boy Fede Di Marco again.
I don't know what it is. He's devastating. 2 assists. That second pass is just unbelievable.
Lovely.
You know, we think of Di Marco as the guy who just kind of runs and delivers crosses. No, he can properly pass and thread a needle as well. He's playing out of the skin. There may be a better left back in the world right now, better attacking left back. I just can't think of one. They went down to 10 men
Early on, 40th minute.
Stupid. Should have probably hung in there for the win. But no worries. It's fun. It's fun to see Italy attack, and it's fun to see Di Marco play so well. Even Reteghi's playing well. How about that?
Scored.
Mauricio Pochettino got off to a good start with the United States in a 2-0 win over Panama and Austin. Jules, it's 11 right now.
Yeah.
That said, they were outshot at home, and their second goal, Ricardo Pepi's goal, only came deep in injury time.
Yeah, true.
Anything? Are you caught up in the collective Pocho for euphoria?
Yeah, as first game comes, I thought that was good. I think it was good because he's only been there a few days. The Mexico game, which they will play on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, will be a much bigger test for them, obviously. But I thought this was good because you saw the intensity that he wanted. You saw what he wanted to do with Christian Pulisic as well. And I thought there was more positive than negative in that first game, that first win. It's good to start with a win, with a kind of positive-ish performance. I think he's learned a lot from what happened at PSG and Chelsea, but this is more of a squad like the one he had at Spurs than any of the other squads that he had. So for that, I'm quite optimistic as well that he will do well.
Yeah, I'm not reading anything in the intensity. New boss, first day of school. I expect that.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. And Pochettino also released Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie, allowing them to return to their clubs. What do you make of this?
It's one of those things where like McKennie was sort of injured, but he wasn't. Pulisic, he could play against Mexico, but let's let him recover. I think the simple reality is Pochettino knows how important these players are. He knows how important the relationship with the club is. Milan, if they're playing on Wednesday night against Mexico, which means Pulisic wouldn't be back able to train really until Friday.
Yeah.
They have a Champions League coming up in midweek as well. And it's Mexico. It's a friendly, and you have an alibi if things go wrong, and those guys aren't there. So, I'm totally good with it. I think it's smart from Pochettino. Jules, we're not done. We got more quick hits. Argentina battled to a 1-1 draw away to Venezuela on a waterlogged pitch. Joe, it's kind of hard to draw any conclusions from this one given the conditions.
Yeah, the conditions were horrible, really. Messi played, came back with the national team, played the whole game. There were quite a lot of changes.
Served up the assist for Otamendi's goal, I believe.
That's right, exactly. Early on, then Venezuela came back. So I guess it's always a good point for Venezuela against the world champions to get a point like that, continuing their very decent qualifiers for the World Cup. Obviously, for Argentina, as we've said.
Yeah,
In CONMEBOL, they're pretty much guaranteed to qualify anyway, so they won't be too bothered if they drop 2 points or not.
Salomon Rondon.
Rondon again. Portugal stay perfect in the Nations League. They often do that with a 3-1 win away to Poland. Gab, the guy who scored the second goal, looks familiar. Look, he's done this before as well.
It's Cristiano, 133 international goals. I'm keeping count. He is now 56. He's got more goals than anybody who was biologically assigned male at birth in international football. He's only 57 away from the all-time record. He
should have had another one as well. He hit the crossbar.
He could have had another one. Yeah. Christine Sinclair is retired. Jules, 57 goals is a lot.
Yeah.
Are you sure 100% certain that he's not going to reach 190 and beat Christine Sinclair?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right. I hope people are recording this and they will troll you.
There's 10 games per season. If he scores even a goal per game, that's 10. He needs another 5 years. That's okay. That's without big competitions. But can he? Yeah. I mean, I would love him too, but
it would be awesome.
Let's be honest.
Brazil beat Chile 2-1 for the first away win in World Cup qualifying. Signs of progress, Jules?
Well, it was a bit laborious, I thought, but they won. Right now, the only thing they care about is to buy them a bit of time, a bit of peace, win games, even if it's not pretty. They won't care, and they suddenly did that. They were a goal behind. They had to come back, which I think again is good for the character and for the spirit, etc. But it was far from being great. Again, it's not the first time we said that.
By the way, Edu Vargas scored again. He's like, what, 62 now?
Yeah, no, exactly. Brazil President Lula noting that both goal scorers in that game, Gabi, play in Brazil, in the Brazilian league and not in Europe. So he suggested that maybe Coach Dorival Jr. should not be picking so many overseas players, i.e. Brazilian players who play outside of Brazil.
Yeah, I'll get to Lula in a second, but first of all, I think it's very important to note this is really a victory for who? For John Textor, because both these guys play for John Textor teams, for Botafogo, Luis Enrique, and of course Igor, whatever his name is, the new guy,
Igor Santos or something.
Anyway, we should know. Anyway, he scored a fine-headed goal.
Yeah,
proper center forward. How about that?
First goal for the national team,
and also Abner too, playing right back. He's at Leon. He's another Textor guy. So really, rather than harassing John Textor with lawsuits, I think Lula should consider making him an honorary senator. Igor Jesus, of course. Now, on to what Lula said. He said, those who play abroad are not better than those who are here. There's no Garrincha or Romario overseas. True.
Yeah.
Although there is a Vinicius, who's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's to say it's just a bunch of young players who are not yet stars. Marquinhos, for me, of course, is a star.
Yeah.
Paqueta,
Bruno, I mean, there's no need.
In terms of superstars who play abroad, though, let's take him at face value. Let's leave the goalkeepers out of it. Those guys, I think, are legit massive superstars. For me, Marquinhos is, in terms of being world-class, established superstar, even though he's had a bit of a bumpier patch this season.
Yeah.
Vinicius, of course, untouchable. Anybody you ready to put in that absolute, no questions asked, global superstar category from Brazil, other than those guys?
But it's not just the superstar. It's just the Paqueta is better than anybody who plays in Brazil. So is Bruno Guimaraes. So is Rodrigo. Probably so is Hendrik. I don't know where this is going. What, they have to be superstars?
No, he's just saying that I think he's doing his job. He's the president of the country. He's proud of the country. He wants to support the league.
Yeah,
and he says, is there really such a gap between Igor Jesus and playing Rodrigo at center forward? I think that's the point he's trying to make.
And there is. But there's I'm sure there's other positions where maybe not so much, but there are positions where, of course.
All right. Time to do some United speculation, Jules. A leading tabloid here in England has suggested that Edin Terzic is on the club shortlist if and when they part ways with Erik ten Hag. Now, in case Jim Ratcliffe gives you a buzz later on, how would you rank Terzic versus the other off-sided contenders, Graham Potter and Thomas Tuchel?
I mean, we like Edin Terzic because he's a really nice guy. We love the story of him as a Dortmund fan becoming the Dortmund manager. All great.
And he's lived in England before. He was an
Yeah, of
assistant
course. He was at West Ham. Yeah, that's right. Really lovely guy. Great to work with. He's not at the level for me at Thomas Tuchel. We've seen, albeit he reached a Champions League final with Dortmund, but we also saw some catastrophic domestic form with a really good team in Dortmund, including obviously losing the title in the last game of the season, a title that was theirs to lose, really. So it's not for me. But again, I like him, really nice guy. But if I was United, I would not go for Edin Terzic.
Okay, what if Thomas Tuchel gets weird again and the choice comes down to Terzic and Potter? Who are you taking?
Oh, that's a tough one.
It's not that tough. It's Graham Potter. Give him another chance. Come on, man.
I'm not sure about that one. Pep Guardiola, what about him? Appeared on the Italian talk show last night and talked about his future, about links with England as well, and who he thought was the greatest player in history. Gab, any surprises? Was that fun to watch?
It was fun. It's more of a talk show. It's not a sports show. The guy said, like, oh, I'll ask you these questions and I already know. I don't want, you're not going to answer them or you're not going to, he says, oh, I don't know. He generally doesn't know if he's going to be the city manager after the season.
Anything's been decided.
Nothing's been decided. They asked him about the England job as well. Nothing's been decided. He shocked me when he said, who is the greatest player in history? And he said, Lionel Andres Messi. That's really
that kind of surprise.
There was a really sweet moment when they surprised him and they brought on by video link Roberto Baggio. Of course, he played with at Brescia.
Yeah.
And he got all emotional.
Oh.
And he used a weird expression. He said Roberto Baggio suffered so many injuries at that point that his knee was like a washing machine.
So,
I don't quite understand.
I don't know, yeah.
Maybe he has so much scar tissue. It's like the inside of a washing
maybe,
machine.
Yeah.
Drum. I don't know. Marca reporting that El Hilal are targeting Vinicius Jr. as a possible replacement for Neymar. Jules, should Real Madrid fans be worried?
Wow, Neymar out of contract obviously at the end of the season. Not that he's played much for them since he joined almost 18 months ago. There was an offer for Vinicius in the summer. A massive offer. We're talking 1 billion for the transfer fee, 1 billion for the players' wages over the next 5 years or so. Eventually they might get him, but not in the near future, that's for sure.
I'll tell you what, if they really are offering 1 billion and Vinicius is like, I might want to take this. Yeah, I would rather. If I'm Real Madrid right now, the way the team is constructed, no disrespect, I would rather have 1 billion than have Vinicius. Also, because I have a guy who can play on the left wing, and it's pretty good.
True. That's
already.
Very true. And then with 1 billion, you can buy a lot of great footballers as well.
Exactly.
Gab, you were aware for this, so I'm going to ask you the question now again. But the independent panel ruled on the APT, the Associated Party Transactions, in the Manchester City case. And we covered this already, as I said, but I'm just going to ask you, how is it possible that both sides claim victory?
This was a mystery to me, so I was following this from afar, but obviously City say that they were procedurally unfair in the way they handled certain aspects of two of their deals, and also say that shareholder loans, because not everybody knows this, but if you own a club, you can either put money into the club via equity, or you can loan the club, which is what some clubs like the Cronkies at Arsenal or Brighton and so on, they loan money to the club usually at no interest rate or very low interest rate. The reason this is, and City are saying, I think City have a point here. This should be considered because it gives the club an advantage, but it also, the owners can always take the money back out theoretically, or at least if they apply for credit elsewhere, they can count that as an asset. The Premier League say, well, no, we've won because they said the overall framework, the concept of associated party transactions is something that is worthwhile and is something that's legitimate. They're going to have to sit there, hammer this out. I wish they wouldn't do this all behind closed doors. All right, somebody described in the media here in England as a social media prankster. How wacky. Reportedly, he bugged Manchester United's dressing room at Villa Park when they played Aston Villa before the break, where, by the way, Eric Ten Hag, who, in spite of all the haters, he got a 0-0 draw, right? Point away from home.
Great result. Wonderful performance.
Jules, so he tried to bug the room. Apparently, he had a phone in there that magically starts recording when you call it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this. But supposedly we know it exists. Supposedly the paper that reported this heard the recording.
Yeah.
What do you make of this?
I don't know, 'cause if we can't hear it, what's the point? Like, if you don't hear it, I'm
Well, it's
sure
a
it would have
security
been
breach.
Yeah, of course, it would have been. It's not something you should do. I'm sure we would have heard a very inspiring team talk from our friend Eric Ten Hag, telling Lisandro Martinez and Matthias de Ligt that Johnny Evans plays in front of you, ahead of you, because he's better than you, and Harry Maguire too, by the way. I don't know. Sometimes I wish we could hear a bit more of those team talk and managers, because I think it's understand. So you see them in those documentaries that are released. We saw the City one, the Arsenal one.
But
etc.
those are obviously carefully approved. Those are less interesting,
absolutely.
right?
But I think sometimes it's good to know a bit more what's happening in there. I know the dressing room is private and etc., which we all for. But yeah, sometimes it's good, but not when you steal information like that.
I agree with you there. What I'm 100% convinced about is that nothing that's said in these team talks, while it may have some interest to the media, outside world, could be embarrassing, whatever. But from a pure footballing perspective, in terms of beating the other team, I am 100% certain that most people think it's totally irrelevant, because we've had the technology to go and bug the opposing team's dressing room since the 1950s.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people might have done this in the past. If it really gave you an edge, I guarantee you people would be doing this. You don't think Eric Ten Hag comes in with a unit sweeping for bugs, right? No.
No.
I'm
the
assuming
main team talk is done before they leave the hotel anyway, or usually.
Exactly. So it's fun, but no more than that.
Yeah. Nigeria's game away to Libya on Tuesday is in that, Gab. It's in the African Cup of Nations qualifier because of what? What happened?
So apparently some people feel this is a tit for tat thing, because Libya had some logistical issues when they played in Nigeria before. They lost the first leg 1-0. So basically, Nigeria chartered a plane. It was diverted. It landed at a different airport. They were supposed to land in Benghazi. They landed somewhere else, several hours away. It lands at the airport, and then the players are not allowed to leave the airport after it lands. Several players tweeted about it. Victor Boniface, Willem Troostekong, and they explained that we're left here with no food. They even Boniface tweeted pictures of the players sleeping on benches. There's been no explanation from the Libyan side just yet as to what happened. The pilot of the plane, who's Tunisian, he was allowed to leave during those 14 hours and return. I don't know if he brought them food or snacks. I hope he did.
Yeah.
But the Nigerian guys weren't.
Crazy. Old school.
It's very old school. It reminds you that it's 2024. These players are multimillionaires. There's a lot of money in the game, but still, crap like this happens.
Yeah.
Jules, this brings us to an end.
Yeah.
But we got to come back on Thursday. More Nations League in the heat of it. We get right into the thick of it, and we might even get some early verdicts.
Yeah.
Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself. More City, Cheeky Baghetti Stein, who's the sporting director, of course, or director of football, or head of recruitment, or whatever silly title they use. It's all the same thing. He is leaving in June, and Sporting's Hugo Viana is taking over from him. Good choice, Jules?
Yeah, I think it's a really good choice. He's a highly rated sporting director, young, obviously former player, as we know, with a really good track.
Number 10.
Yeah, very talented. With great track record of signing, certainly for Sporting Club de Portugal. Gyökeres, of course, is the main one, but they've already found Gyökeres' replacement in Konrad Harder, the young Danish striker. The Bast, I mean, plenty of them. So good. For me, this also screams that Ruben Amorim, who is currently the Sporting Club, the Portugal manager, also highly rated, very close to Hugo Viana, very, very tight friendship there. Could be potentially, if Pep Guardiola was to leave at the end of his contract, at the end of the season, then the Amorim-Viana partnership reunited at Manchester City would make a lot of sense. So for me, Viana is the first step towards a Ruben Amorim arrival at City if Pep Guardiola was to leave.
Wow, so having gone Catalan, they go Sportingista now.
Exactly, exactly. Portuguese.
Fun fact about Hugo Viana, just to name drop, was in Istanbul for Champions League draw, I think 3-4 years ago. And I'm in an elevator with Nasser Al-Khalifi and one of his servants. And, it's like a long elevator up. I go in, I push my floor, and I'm actually staying one floor above Nasser's floor,
Right.
which shows you I'm more important.
Yeah,
than
of
Nasser.
course you are.
And then it just as it's closing, and I was slightly chit chatting with him, waiting for the doors to close, and then suddenly, like Hugo Viana comes and puts his like hand in the door to keep it open, and then he sees Nasser, and he's like, "Uh-oh, like this isn't just some random schmo.
Yeah.
This is Nasser," and it was really sweet. He introduced himself to Nasser, and he tells him we made, and he says like how pleased he was with the Nuno Mendes to Paris Saint-Germain deal
Oh, yeah.
that they completed. And it was just funny because I always assumed these people all know each other, but it was sweet. Maybe Nasser meets so many people. I'm sure he's met.
that's
Hugo
why.
Viana probably didn't remember, but
Yeah.
anyway, I thought it was humble of him. Put
Yeah.
it that way.
Gab, you also love talking about footballers playing too many games. Opta came up with some stats for you.
I'm glad I could have come up with these stats myself if I had a lot of time
Yeah.
to waste
Yeah.
or knew how to write code, which the people at Opta obviously do, and I don't. This idea that, everybody's playing too many games, 60, 70, 90, and people love to come up with the fact that City could theoretically be playing 68 games this season, plus the Club World Cup at the end of the season, and poor Rodri, well, not a problem for Rodri because he won't be playing many of these. But we've said all along that this idea of too many games, it only concerns certain players.
Yeah.
And so they actually ran some numbers on this. And Manchester City, largely because they're really, really good, they played the most games last season, most club games. They played 59 games. Second and third were Fiorentina, who played 58, and third were Villa, who played 56. Now, if you play the third most, you play 56 games in 52 weeks less the summer's, 42 weeks.
Yeah.
This is not monstrous to me.
Yeah.
And they also found that the vast majority of games in Europe's Big Six leagues, vast majority of teams play less than 50 games. There were 5 teams in the Premier League, where, of course, there's 2 cup competitions, who played fewer than 42 games. And there were 36 teams in Europe's top 6 leagues. So I think that's more than a quarter, who would play fewer than 40 games this season.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting this, I'm not saying it's not important Rodri plays too many games in his health. I'm just saying take a wider view and don't just do this knee-jerk thing about like, greed, too many competitions. No, there's different situations for different clubs. Gareth Southgate has announced he's taking a year off.
Oh, good for you.
I guess this means we won't see him at United.
Yeah.
Will we see him somewhere else? Because it can be a little bit tricky when you call yourself
Do you mean,
out for a
will
year.
he ever coach again? That's what you mean?
Well, I'm wondering, a year out of football,
Yeah.
if you kind of miss your window there, you get into like the Max Allegri hell where you're like, I'm just going to take a year off and wait for Real Madrid to Manchester United to call me. And then nobody calls you.
So
and
maybe
then,
not a top club then, I guess. But maybe he will find some way. If he really wants to coach again, he would just have to accept that it's not a top club and that maybe the project is not that great. But if he wants to coach again, he will be able to, surely.
I do wonder. I understand Jurgen Klopp after 8 years or however many it was, 9 years, whatever. It feels like that at Liverpool with the intensity, blah, 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 feeling worn out, wanting to take a break. Gareth Southgate manages England. The workload isn't quite the same when you're an international manager. Are you a little surprised he just makes this announcement? Or you think he waited, saw that nobody's actually interested right now, and says, I'll take a year off. I'll take a sabbatical.
Yeah, it's a bit like Klopp, isn't it? You say a year, but it could be 6 months. It could be less. It could be...
Yeah, but Klopp, I can understand that he'd be tired and worn out. He's been doing
But
this a
maybe
lot.
the pressure managing England for, 6 years? So, yeah, something like that. A little bit more than 6 years. Maybe it was a lot. I don't know. Even if you're right, there was only, as we said, 10 games a year plus the big competition. So... not so much, yeah. So
It just feels like outside of qualifiers and Nations League games, which, as we've seen, people in this country don't seem to really care about. Qualifiers are straightforward. True. You have 3 major tournaments, which I'm sure are very intense and stressful. But the rest of the time,
it's cool.
What do? You have a couple meetings on Zoom. You visit people. You watch football at the weekends.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. That's true. Nottingham Forest have been fined £750,000 for their tweets after the Luton game last season, when they said that referee Stuart Atwell was a Luton fan. Remember? I think we all remember those tweets. Does that make sense to you? Is it a lot, that fine?
It's. I mean, again,
it's a big fine for a tweet.
It's a very big fine. It's a big fine for a tweet, but you're responsible for your actions. This is really. I think actually fortunate they didn't get a sporting sanction as well, because it's one thing to say Stuart Atwell's terrible and whatever. It's another thing to say, you say he's a Luton fan, you're saying he's intentionally biased. You're attacking an institution like this. So unless you have evidence that he is a Luton fan and he made those decisions because he's a Luton fan, then you at best be quiet. So I think this is really serious. I think they have to come down hard on them. And I think in the end, Marinakis can maybe consider himself a little bit fortunate. Again, I have no problem saying Atwell's wrong, Atwell's incompetent, whatever. You want to say all that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But the minute you start attacking his integrity,
that's true.
that's not on. Jules, I'm not a gamer, but even if I knew how important FIFA's deal with EA Sports, but even then, I know how important FIFA's deal with EA Sports and the FIFA video games were. In fact, it was FIFA's single biggest commercial deal at the time. They famously split apart. EA Sports FIFA became FC. Wonder where they got that idea from. And FIFA said, oh, no, we're going to get our own commercial partner. Apparently, they've announced a partnership with Konami, and it's going to, but it won't be called FIFA. It'll be called eFootball, which is very imaginative. Are you into this? Konami, of course, they used to make Pro Evolution Soccer.
Yeah, the PES game, which, like when we were growing up, was better than FIFA at the time, the EA Sport FIFA. And then EA Sport sort of like blew them away, the competition away, and like PES kind of disappeared completely. Well, it became worse and worse and disappeared. Maybe they're going to just make it better and make it good again. I guess the contract with FIFA means that they will be allowed to have the normal team and names and stuff, which was not always
for the World Cup.
Before. For the World Cup, I don't know about individual countries, clubs, all that I guess is to be discussed, but we'll have to see. But I think it'd be pretty hard to try to catch up with the EA Sport game now. They're so ahead.
It's a franchise.
Yeah, definitely.
French state television channel France 2, which I watched a lot of when I was in France this summer for the Olympics. They're producing a fly-on-the-wall documentary. They have camera crews following Nasser Al-Khelaifi around. If they'd been following around in Istanbul, I might have been in it with Ugo Viana in the lift.
I know, man. Too late.
Jules, will you be watching?
Of course.
Why is he doing this?
I don't know. I didn't even know until you put this quick hit in. I didn't even know. Nobody told me. I certainly won't be in it, I think. But yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe he thinks that everything he does for the ECF, for example, which he's the chairman of, as a chairman of PSG, maybe he thinks that's interesting for people to see behind the scenes a little bit.
So the reason I'm curious about this is that, okay, so a lot of those fly-on-the-wall documentaries, like the Manchester City one, Juventus did one. Did Arsenal do one too?
Yeah.
So it's all or nothing. Okay, I'm going to lift the lid on the secret, right? It's not like the camera crews go in there. They have all access. No. The club or the subject of the documentary gets to decide what's in there and what's not there, right?
Yeah.
So, if there's Arteta suddenly farting or like dropping like his food or spilling his food all over himself or falling off a chair, that might not make it into the video.
No.
Might. For a state broadcaster, generally, they don't really accept those terms because you're kind of blurring the line between entertainment and news, right?
Yeah.
Most, shall we say, serious media organizations, I think, would say, look, if we're going to do this, we film everything and we decide what goes in there, right? You don't get final say. I'm assuming France 2 would have reached the same deal.
I think so.
And I'm just curious that Nasser would put himself out there like this. You might be really confident that you're not going to do anything embarrassing or silly, or that you can control it. But doesn't he run a global media network of his own?
It's not him running it.
No. But I guess if Bian had done it,
I think he would be involved. Yeah.
I find this interesting. I hope they subtitle it for me.
Yeah. Sergio Aguero has taken legal action against Barcelona, his former club, saying that they owe him 3 million euros still after they terminated his contract back in 2021.
Right. So, look, lawyers and contracts are a thing, and you have a right to do this. But just because you have a right to do something doesn't mean it's the morally, ethically right thing to do. Because unfortunately, there's laws and then there's ethics. Mm-hmm. Sergio Aguero, and look, I'm not a Barcelona fan. I don't want to stick up for Barcelona, as you know. I've been very hard on the club, on Laporta, on what came before. But this is a guy who was basically injured for 18 months before signing for Barcelona as a free agent. It was a stupid deal at the time to sign somebody that's on those wages when you know he's injured. He comes in, there was that other problem. They couldn't register him until the end because of the financial situation. He played a total of 167 minutes for Barcelona, and then they used his injury to terminate his contract.
Yeah.
I know, dude, you have a contract, but you can't argue that contract stopped you from going off to play somewhere else. No, you retired because you were injured, as evidenced by the fact that it's not like he rocked up somewhere else to play.
Yeah.
You seeking this, you may have a right to this compensation, but it also means that you could care less about Barcelona.
Yeah.
I'm not saying as a fan, as an institution, because you know the financial situation they're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
This seems really, really petty from somebody who's got a lot of money.
It's a bit disappointing, I think.
I don't know. I'm not in that situation.
Maybe he can do with 3 million euros. You don't know.
Maybe I don't know why he needs another 3 million. Maybe he does. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But it just doesn't feel right.
No, I agree.
Okay. Norway, one of the enduring mysteries in football.
Yeah.
How they can be so terrible when they have so much talent. Obviously, no Martin Ødegaard.
No.
But you have Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
You had Antonio Nusa.
Yeah.
You have the only living Sorloth in captivity.
That's right.
How'd they get on against Austria?
It was 1-1 at half time.
Oh, that's good.
Good first half. Haaland hit the post at 0-0. Then Austria scored. Then they came back 1-1. And it looked like we had the game on our hands for the second half. And then the second half, they must have sent the reserve team or the under 18 because it was certainly not, there was no match. And Austria won 5-1. It was a humiliating second half where Arnautovic and Sabitzer,
looks good, doesn't he?
Posh, all of them, they just like toyed with Norway. There was no, but even like a bit of tactical cohesion from this Norway team. They look completely lost on the pitch, wave after wave after wave from Austria. Austria could have scored more games than the 5 that they did. And I think it's a really, really embarrassing defeat for Norway now. And to be fair, it's a group where everybody has 7 points. So Norway on 7, Austria on 7, and then Slovenia on 7, I think. They beat Kazakhstan 1-0. So there's still a lot to play for with 2 games each to play. So it's not, Norway can still top that Group of Nations League.
But they can also still get relegated.
But they can still also finish like 3rd. Yeah. So.
Well, they could get relegated too.
No, because Kazakhstan have 1 point. So
okay. All right.
7, 1. Yeah. So, but yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was just a one-off and they get better next month.
This is an ongoing thing with Holland and Norway. Like
they're just underperforming, it seems. Yeah.
We're in an ecosystem where, people joke, oh, everybody qualifies for the Euros. Everybody qualifies for the World Cup. Well, Norway don't.
No.
And it's got to be frustrating for him, obviously frustrating for him commercially.
Yeah.
But
surely with the extended World Cup and at some point the extended Euros as well, they will make it. They have to make it. Come on, it's not.
Norway have been in World Cups before. I can confirm that. I have spoken to people. We know people who played in World Cups for Norway.
Indeed. Gab, when Nedum and I discussed the news about Jurgen Klopp, as you've seen, joining the Red Bull group, before getting your opinion on it, and I think I know exactly where you stand. Kevin Grosskreutz, remember the former Dortmund player who played under Klopp, who now has a podcast now that he retired. Well, Grosskreutz had a lot to say and not very nice about Klopp's decision too.
Yeah, and Grosskreutz was kind of the symbol in some ways, like the everyman of that first great Dortmund team of the early 90s, the one with Kagawa and Lewandowski and Nuri Sahin and Mats Hummels and Subotic. Remember Subotic? And Weidenfeller? Because he was the guy who I think was like the legit fan and who Klopp elevated and became such a big part of the system. And this story has upset a lot of people in Germany because Red Bull are so hated by fans of many teams, including Dortmund. And they feel betrayed by this. Like, Jurgen Klopp obviously has a right to do whatever he wants with his life. But the same thing, there is a public persona. And if you present yourself in a way, he has spoken out on political views that I think I don't want to describe them for him. I know nobody likes it when I mention the word politics here, but let me put it this way: I think most people would say are not necessarily aligned with the Red Bull organization.
Yeah.
Social views which are not aligned. He spoke out about his views on Brexit when he was living here in England. when you have that kind of man of the people ethos, and then you do something like this, you can't really have it both ways.
No, that's true.
People are going to feel betrayed. They're going to react angrily. Doesn't make Hub a bad person. I hope he would at least, he gets a chance to explain at some point his thinking, because his role, look, he can just say, look, professionally, Red Bull are the gold standard of multi-club ownership. There is, I've said this many times, there's no club in the world that does multi-club ownership well. Red Bull probably do a better job of it than anybody else.
Yeah.
He's excited by this and whatever. Probably not the money. He walked away from a lot of money at Liverpool. I dare say he would have made a lot more money had he stayed at Liverpool, right?
Yeah.
But there are other multi-club organizations you could have gone to, right? He could have gone to work for John Textor.
For example,
No, just kidding there. So, I don't know. It leaves, I can see why people have had this.
Yeah.
People in England may not quite understand this because they don't understand the hatred that many fans in Germany have towards Red Bull.
I think Liverpool fans do understand that.
I think, they probably would. Neutrals tend not to, in my experience. So, it does leave you a bit. Hopefully he gets a chance to talk about it.
And you know what? He's the second game of Leipzig, so not the next game in the league, but the one after in the Champions League is against Liverpool. So Leipzig will play Liverpool, RB Leipzig, where you suppose he'll be in the stand to watch one of his Red Bull teams, because that's what he does now. It will be against Liverpool, which is,
I will bet you a sushi. I know you like sushi. I will bet you sushi lunch. He's not there.
I bet you anything you want that he's there.
Anything at all?
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see. Chelsea beat Arsenal 2-1 to go top of the Women's Soccer League. Women's Super League, even, it's called here in England.
Yeah.
Jules, tough times for Jonas Eidevall.
Yeah, under pressure a lot. 1 win in 5 in the league. Defeated against Bayern Munich in Germany, 5-2 in midweek before. That defeat against Chelsea now is a lot. And it's more that when you watch them play, doesn't seem to be enough considering how good the squad is to start with. And that they should be right up there with Chelsea and Man City to compete for the title, certainly in the WSL, and then doing well in Europe as well. So, yeah, that was a massive defeat, 2-1, as you said. They go 2-0 down, Ramirez. And to be fair, Sonia Bonpastor and Chelsea, really, really good in the first hour, half hour especially. After that, it was a bit more, let's defend and let's keep that lead. Emma Hayes was in the stands.
I bet she enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm sure she did,
really enjoyed
obviously. But yeah, very good for Sonia Bonpastor, that start of the season. I'm really happy for her. And then for Eidevall, he will need to turn things around pretty quickly, I think. Ilkay Gundogan released a nice letter to all Germany fans, Gabi, announcing his retirement from international football, which we knew, but I guess that just made it official, right? What do you make of it? Do you like to see that more often?
Okay, so he released it to a newspaper in Germany, which I thought, like, dude, you have an Instagram, put it out there to everybody. But then again, no matter where you put it, I guess somebody's going to profit of it. So, might as well.
True.
But it was sweet. It was, and I think he was genuine. Look, I don't always agree with many of the things Gundogan says, but I agree with some of them. But I like people who are honest. I like people who are forthright and open, who are emotional. I think he's entirely genuine when he talks, and he's in the final years of his career. He obviously shouldn't be a part, as I say, shouldn't be a part of this Germany team because
I agree.
Partly for tactical reasons, partly 2026 is more than 18 months away. Like you shouldn't put a manager in that position, and he's just going to be a super fan, and that's great. And I think it's good news for Manchester United as well because
Manchester
City. Bad news for Manchester United, actually. I think he's still around because it means you get. You get Gundogan all to yourself, and he's going to be your total focus, especially while Rodri's out. L'Equipe report that Enzo Maresca has agreed to play Wesley Fofana just once a week until January. Jules, what do you make of this load management?
So it was a long article on Wesley Fofana and how he kind of rebuilt himself.
This is the one thing we're taking
after the injury, and I don't think it's just the fact that they are very careful with his injury record. Obviously, as you would, he's not part of the Conference League squad, so he can't play midweek. So yeah, there's the League Cup that he could play, but right now he's just missing a couple of League Cup games. So yeah, there's nothing in it apart from the fact that they're just very careful. So is Deschamps, by the way. Remember, he was called up for the September international break, and it was decided between Deschamps, the French medical staff and Chelsea and the medical staff at Chelsea that it was better for him to stay in London, so he didn't travel to France. And
This is what you call a big nothing burger, I think,
Yeah,
given the circumstances. But I think what's interesting is this is to do with, I think, lingering fallout of the knee injury he had last year, not the ACL, which obviously stopped him the first time, because I think he's fully recovered from that.
Yeah.
No love lost between Luis Suarez and Marcelo Bielsa, whose Uruguay team lost 1-0 to Peru, Jules. They're not doing great.
Yeah, and we know Luis Suarez retired from international football last month in September in that break. Great tribute and reception from the fans, and then he waited a little bit and then gave this massive interview, explosive interview, where he lays into Bielsa for the kind of management that he's put in place since taking over with Uruguay. Stuff like he doesn't even say hello. We had to ask him to actually say hello to players in the morning, doesn't talk to anybody, he's rude, all of that, loads of things. And said during Copa America, Suarez saw things that really hurt him, but he didn't want to say anything because he didn't want to disturb the national team in a big tournament. And then in this interview, just let go everything against Bielsa and saying that Bielsa is the reason why he retired from international football.
Yeah, he also said that staff were not allowed to speak to the players or eat with the team, which, you know, when you're away at a tournament is just odd because you're all supposed to be a team. And
in the same bubble,
I just find it odd because you're always told, in any team, anybody's ever been part of a team, right? You're always told that, like, hey, everybody's important. You know, the kit man's really important. The groundskeeper, the physio, the guy with the bucket and the mop, right? This seems to go completely against it. Now, we know Bielsa is unique in the way he approaches things. It does leave a bit. It does leave a bad taste.
Didn't look for him now at all. Juventus have been linked with Everton striker Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Gab, what's the logic there? Because I can't really see it.
I guess the logic is that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is out of contract in June.
Okay.
And he's fit. He started 7 games, I think every game this season for Everton. Everton have a new owner who might want to bring in a new striker, I'm guessing. Juventus have Dusan Vlahovic, but their other striker, Arik Milik, is kind of permanently injured. He'll be back at some point. Calvert-Lewin wants a new deal, maybe not at Everton, maybe elsewhere, but you can get him on a free in June. So in January, wouldn't cost too much money. And so somebody got the mandate to sell him in Italy, and I love putting his name out there. I think this is the extent of the logic. I don't think Calvert-Lewin is a terrible footballer when fit. You may not like him. Would you take?
I mean, I guess if Vlahovic leaves and you get quite a lot of money, I would not go for
not if Vlahovic leaves. He would be there to be Vlahovic's backup.
Oh, yeah, as a backup if he doesn't cost you much. But I don't know, it's a bit... doesn't do it for me, that's all.
Okay, well, would you... I'm curious, though, in the scheme of backup center forwards, right? I'm going to go back to my favorite subject, which, of course, is Kai Havertz, who plays center forward for Germany and for Arsenal and scores goals and is good in the air and is nasty, but he's not a proper number 9. Would Calvert-Lewin be a better option as a backup center forward for Arsenal than, say, Eddie Nketiah, who was there last year?
I mean, at least he knows the league. He knows, he knows the Premier League. I think there's a different option there for you as a number 9. You can even play him with Havertz. So I think he'd be good. I think he's a good player. It's just if you're Juventus, I'm not sure if you go and get Calvert-Lewin ahead of other options that you might have. That's all.
But that's what I was driving at. I think he's going to have options in the Premier League with 6 months to go if they decide not to extend him. He's only 27 years old, so he's got some years left. And I think a lot of those big clubs, I would include Chelsea again. I don't think Chelsea should sign him. I don't think they will sign him because he doesn't fit the business model, whatever. But if I'm Chelsea and I need somebody as an alternative to Nico Jackson, I'm better off with Calvert-Lewin than Mark Yu, right?
Yeah, although Nkunku is probably the first replacement.
But Nkunku is very different. He's a very different player, right? He's not the center forward type. So, I don't know. I wish Calvert-Lewin well.
Yeah, of course we do.